So we're going to jump back into Peter Sewell's evidence to the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry, and there's been issues raised at Fujitsu, significant issues over the Horizon integrity, following reports at post offices that have been identified where shortfalls have been created due to transaction locks, predominantly during the balancing day period, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. in the evening when this CABS process is running. But it appears that the problem might extend further, despite that being responsible for the majority of identified issues so far. So reviewing all the previous available data from 5.5 years, approximately 2003 to 2008 is suggested, but it's very quickly concluded now by somebody, for reasons which aren't too clear at the moment, that there's insufficient evidence for the Horizon investigation, and that actually maybe they should confine it to a much smaller period, ignoring anything pre-2007. Let's jump into the inquiry.
Sir, can you continue to see and hear me?
I can, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sewell, we're going to turn now to a meeting that took place in September of 2008. Can we please look at FUJ 001-55257, please? It's a meeting that took place on the 3rd of September, and this is an email dated the 5th of September with some notes that followed. Sent to you by Roy Birkinshaw. Who was Roy Birkinshaw?
I think one of the managers in one of the teams. I don't quite remember his position.
Draft statement there, peak 152376 triggered a review of the audit mechanism and of the Horizon counter's behaviour. This review has been going on over the last 2 weeks. Our conclusion is that there is not sufficient evidence to warrant continuing the review at the scale with which it was being conducted.
It'll be interesting to see on what basis that was, because it seems like quite a significant point. Maybe it's due to the rarity of the error as they perceived it at the time.
The less some residual actions that need to be driven forward. Are we to take it then that the significant exercise that had been planned, the 5.5 years worth of ARQ data, it was decided on the 3rd of September that there wasn't sufficient evidence to warrant continuing that kind of a review?
I don't know. I don't recall that. I don't remember that.
I mean, do you remember 5.5 years worth of ARQ data being poured over for a considerable period?
That was one of the plans that was coming out of the remedy, but whether it actually happened, I don't remember.
Does this email suggest, in fact, that it didn't happen?
If that's what that is referring to.
Yes. And then there are a number of actions for people. JB is somebody called John Burton. Is that a name that's familiar to you?
The name is familiar, yes.
Do you know what his role was?
No, I don't.
No. JB to review with Hillary over the extent to which the programme might need to revisit the history of ARQs that are closed. Number 2, PS is presumably a reference to yourself.
I think so.
Audit and security teams to progress changes to the current process to tighten any weaknesses perceived therein in responding to open ARQs. If we look at number 4, PS, so again, your name, with assistance from the audit team to review the words currently offered to Post Office in support of ARQ requests and prosecutions in the light of the review run. Can you assist us there with the task that you had been set?
Well, actually, what it says to review the words, I think the main word there is assistance from the audit team. I think they were the players who put the wording in.
I mean, to be fair to Peter Sewell, in this case, they're almost suggesting, well, there is an issue, but for some reason that we've not come across yet, we've decided to stop this massive review of the ARQ data. But the nub of the issue seems to be the integrity of the audit data being produced and technical problems in the system. Reviewing the processes in the security operations team isn't likely to get to the bottom of that, nor is changing the word on the witness statement. So I'm not so sure how overall that is part of the solution, unless they are suggesting to maybe weaken the statement somewhat by saying there could be some potential issues and potential occasions where this data isn't accurate, which I don't believe they ever did.
It says PS with assistance from the audit team, so it seems as though you were personally tasked with this.
Maybe I was tasked, but then I delegated that down to the team that were relevant to putting the wording in.
So where the task involved, for example, reviewing the words currently offered For example, in perhaps witness statements, that wasn't something that you yourself got involved in?
Absolutely not. No. I relied on the technical people to put those words in.
Despite being the named person there to carry out
Well, I think the named person is the person maybe who will make it happen.
Can we please now look at FUJ 001-55263? We're moving now to the 16th of September 2008. This is an email from Anne Chambers to Penny Thomas, but you are copied in alongside Gareth Jenkins.
Yes.
Presumably your evidence is that this was just because you were her manager or something along those lines.
Yes.
Penny, we discussed this event when it occurred while CAB's process was running at 7 p.m, but we didn't explain why it might be seen at other times. And if you were ever questioned about it, it might confuse you. Basically, it happens when one process has locked the message store, usually only very briefly, and another process tries to access the message store at precisely the same time.
In that case, though, I mean, it depends what your definition of very briefly is, but presumably, if it's less than the 10 seconds on the timeout on the messages, it wouldn't actually result in a problem with the integrity of the audit data, because it would wait up to 10 seconds. So if, for example, the message store was locked for 5, then on the 6th second, it will be able to grab its own lock and write the message to it.
The worst offender for doing the locking is CAB's process, but it can happen at other times too. Did you understand that the issue wasn't just at the 7 p.m. time, but it could also happen at other times?
The only thing I was aware of was the end of day process that seemed to affect it.
And do you read this in the same way as I read it, which is that in fact it's not just the end of day process, it can happen at other times too?
That's what it suggests here, doesn't it?
And was that something that you were aware of?
No.
Whether it causes a problem or not depends on A, what the second process is trying to do, and B, whether that process handles the error situation in a sensible way.
And that's the key thing. With the issue we've seen the timeouts in the previous evidence that we've reviewed, it doesn't seem to be being handled in a sensible way. It's not totally untraceable, because they say it's written to the events log that there's an issue. But the key part is that will be here is whether the process at Fujitsu is adapted so that all ARQ requests take into account what is potentially in the event logs as well, to highlight if any of these errors have happened, and therefore trigger a further investigation to maybe clarify that there was an issue at certain points in the ARQ data and these were the relevant error messages. You would have to accompany all that together with the ARQ request, which obviously would require more manpower from someone with technical expertise to be able to try and do that.
All the checks we've made have shown that in the vast majority of cases, what is being done has no financial impact and doesn't affect the integrity of the system in any way, and or the error situation is handled sensibly. Just pausing there, in the vast majority of cases has no financial impact. As somebody whose team was providing evidence in court cases, do you think reference to vast majority of cases is reassuring or not reassuring?
This has been written by Anne Chambers, who was Technical Design Authority.
I didn't ask who it was written by. She refers there to it not affecting the vast majority of cases in respect of financial impact. Your team is providing witness evidence in proceedings against sub-postmasters. Is it reassuring to you to hear that it doesn't happen in the vast majority of cases, or would you like it to happen in no cases?
Obviously, no cases. That's what the choice is, yes.
And that does highlight actually a difference in the technical point of view versus the business point of view, different roles in a company. So, for example, in the technical point of view, you might be pretty chuffed from a developer point of view, system architect point of view, saying in the vast majority of cases, let's try and put a number on it, 95% of cases actually it works perfectly and there's no fine or works well in terms of this error not occurring, but there's no financial loss. Now that 5% might not seem massive in terms of a technical or a developer point of view. Obviously you'd like it to be 100%, but nothing's ever 100%. However, from a business point of view, so more in Peter Sewell's role, you'd expect they might say, yeah, but what about those 5% of cases? Particularly given that they're writing the witness statement, it then means that you really can't honestly make a conclusive statement about the integrity of the ARQ data, and it is really duty bound on you to suggest that actually if I'm being told it only is accurate the vast majority of the time, then that's something I possibly need to convey in the witness statement to ensure that I'm being truthful and accurate.
Are you aware at this stage that in some cases it could cause a financial impact?
I wasn't aware.
If that happened, or something similar to this happened, in, for example, a prosecution of a sub-postmaster who wasn't aware of the issue happening because there was no error notice provided to them, might it result in a serious injustice to that sub-postmaster?
I think it would, yes.
Can we please turn to FUJ 001-55265? Penny Thomas, to yourself. Pete, as an afterthought, what happened with regard to checking event errors for cases we are not advised of? Was someone action to deal with this? Was that a concern that you recall at all?
I can't remember it.
Because what Ms. Thomas seems to be concerned about here is errors that you're not advised of need to be checked as well. Do you recall doing anything about that?
I don't recall. I don't remember it.
Putting aside the particular issue, do you remember at this period, September 2008, some significant task force grouping together to have a look at all the historic cases, for example, at Fujitsu?
The one thing I do remember is the lock-in issue with the end of day, and that was proven to be a bug in the system, which was corrected, and then the ARQs and the events were rechecked after that to prove that they're okay.
So that issue was corrected then, because it seemed to be suggested before that as it was such a rare issue, it wasn't actually going to be addressed with a bug fix in Horizon according to the peak previously. So maybe there was a decision taken in the meeting, although it wasn't clear from the meeting notes that actually the issue did need fixing and was subsequently reviewed. It seems to be the thing that was certainly put to the wayside is that historic review of the 5.5 years worth of data that they had available to them to check for the prevalence of this issue that they're aware of, as well as maybe some other issues that may have been as yet undetected.
And what she's expressing concern here is that there may be issues that you're not aware of, other event error checks. Did you instigate some grand task force to review?
We checked event errors, yes, to check. Yes.
You checked all historical event errors, all previous
right, yes.
court cases historically from
that
the
period
time
when we knew the period of where the error was, yes.
And when you say you knew the period the error was, I mean, we'll see in due course references to 2007 to 2008.
That's the period.
It was, in fact, confined to that period, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
And we saw earlier that the original intention had been to review historic cases for as long as you had records for, dating back to 2003. But it
Yes.
seems, certainly by this stage, that didn't take place, that wider exercise.
Yeah, I don't remember why it was not done. But,
I mean, maybe the more sensible decision here would have been, obviously that's a lot of data to review, and we can see that they kind of referenced that in the email. Maybe it would have been sensible, for example, to see, well, if we look at 2007 to 8 first, we can actually get results quicker. Are there any significant problems? Are there issues we're not aware of? Is this issue that we've identified more widespread than we first thought? And should those things be found, then you could extend the period back to continually review cases. Obviously, if this period gave a clean bill of health, it wouldn't be a guarantee that there weren't issues before, but it might be able to give you a steer on A, what kind of problems are happening in Horizon, and B, the likelihood of there being further issues the further back that you look. Whereas it seems that going back further from 2007 at this stage has been ruled out before even the 2007-8 data has been reviewed.
Were you the person who was responsible, if it had taken place, to have instigated it?
I don't believe so, no.
Who do you say should have instigated that?
I don't know. Someone from the design authority of the audit system.
Somebody from the design authority of the audit system?
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Who might that be?
Maybe Alan Holmes.
So a technical person?
A technical person, yes.
Not somebody who's directly involved in the team that is assisting with the prosecution of sub-postmasters?
I think one of the technical team should have taken it on, yes.